Are we live now, Mackenzie? Okay, my apologies. Usually committee adjustment starts at 6 o'clock. Had some computer issues. I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Fort Erie Committee Adjustment meeting of August 19th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. I now call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to introduce you to the committee members and staff. Committee members are Sam Pasha, Dave DiFrancisco, and myself, Sam Cecil, will be chairing tonight's meeting. And the town staff for tonight's meetings are the following: Kara H., the Secretary Treasurer, who will be recording the minutes of tonight's meeting, and Mackenzie Cece, meeting host, whom is doing the background technical duties. To those members of the public who may be participating electronically in the public meeting portion of this meeting tonight, you may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner for speaker view. I would also ask that you're mindful of background noises for the duration of the meeting. Please also note that the participating members of the public will remain in the virtual waiting room via telephone or electronically until they're called upon during the public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act for the purpose of considering both minor variance and consent applications. Members of the committee have been provided with all written comments received by agencies and the public prior to this meeting. Committee members are asked to mute their microphones until you're asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak and vote by raising your hand. The purpose of this meeting is to obtain input from residents relative to the application. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you can do so by clicking on participants in the bottom center of the screen and then by clicking raise hand. On a mobile device, you can tap more in the bottom right and then tap noise hand. You will then be brought in the meeting by staff. You can then unmute yourself and start your video by using the buttons on your screen. If you're participating by phone, you wish to raise your hand, press *9 and you'll be unmuted by staff. Next, we'll hear from the applicant or agent and from those in support or opposition to the application or to ask questions. We ask that each attendee keep their comments to under 10 minutes to allow all attendees the opportunity to speak. Applicants attendees are asked that they are free to leave the webinar once a decision is made on their application. Each application will be proceeded in the following order. Number 1, the Secretary Treasurer to summarize purpose and effect of application and any comments received. 2, the applicant called upon to speak and make any further comments if they have any. 3, the committee members will ask questions of the applicant. 4, the public will be asked to speak at one time and to state their full name and address for the record and any comments they may have towards the application. 5, the chair will close the application once comments have been heard. And 6, the committee members will make a decision on the application, approve, refuse, or deferred, and state if any conditions apply. Please address your comments, questions directly through the chair. Each application will be heard in order in which they appear on the agenda. The notice of decision will be provided to all applicants stating the outcome of the hearing and any conditions of approval if they're required. Please note that correspondence and comments received this evening are restricted to matters of the Committee of Adjustment of the Planning Act. In considering each application's evening, the Committee of Adjustment will have due regard for the provisions of Section 45 and Section 53 of the Ontario Planning Act of 1990 as amended. A 20-day appeal period exists for each application heard this evening. Final appeal dates are noticed on the notice of decision and are available by requesting a copy in writing. Sorry. I'll begin by asking committee members present if they have any conflicts of interest in respect of any applicants to be heard this evening. Sam?
I do not.
And Dave?
Do not.
I have none. And I now ask the Secretary Treasurer if notice this meeting was properly given in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Planning Act.
Yes, all applications were circulated to all abutting properties within 60 meters of each application, and signs were posted on each property as per Planning Act regulations.
Okay, Carrie, and did anybody request for adjournment of withdrawal respecting of any tonight's applications?
We had no request for adjournment or withdrawals.
Okay, thank you. I'll now proceed with the first application. I'll now call file consent B2421. And then we'll do simultaneously, we'll do minor variance A4921 and the area is 1473 Garrison Road. And Mackenzie, can you bring the applicant in?
I sure can.
Hi, Randeep, how are you?
Good evening, sir.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How's everybody?
Good. And are you ready to proceed with tonight's application, the consent file B2421 and the minor variance A4921?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence. When Kara's read all the correspondence, the committee members will ask you questions, and if you have any comments or anything like that, you can make that once Kara's made her summation of all the comments, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
This consent application proposes the creation of a new lot for future residential development. The retained lot on the Severance sketch has an existing two-story dwelling and attached garage and will continue its residential use. The new lot on the sketch is proposed for future residential development. The R1 zone requires a minimum lot frontage of 18 meters for interior lots and 20 meters for corner lots, and a minimum lot area of 600 square meters. Both the retained and the proposed lot exceed the minimum frontage and area requirements of the R1 zone. Creation of the proposed lot will result in a deficient front and rear yard setback for the retained lot. The zoning bylaw requires a front rear setback of 7.5 meters and 10 meters respectively, whereas only 6.3 meters and 9.3 meters are provided. These are technical variances. Approval of these variances will be a condition of consent. It is noted the new lot will be subject to infill regulations under subsection 10.4 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant should refer to these regulations prior to the submission of any building plans to avoid zoning deficiencies and requiring a minor variance at the building permit stage. Creation of residential lot in the urban area demonstrates an efficient use of land and resources in accordance with the provincial policy statement and the regional and town official plans, and is considered good planning. As per the town's official plan, residential intensification, infill development, and redevelopment is encouraged in urban areas that have sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. Staff note that 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication is required for the creation of a new residential lot. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application subject to the following conditions. Approval of minor variance A49. The shed on parcel 2 is removed, that the garden associated with part 1 is removed, that the board fence along the frontage on parcel 2 is removed, that the board fence along the new property line is removed, that payment of 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication is paid, and that the applicant provide a reference plan and the final consent fee of $177 to the town. Infrastructure have reviewed the application and have no objections based on the applicant is to make a $500 payment to the town for one tree, that an overall lot grading plan be placed or be submitted for parcel 2 for review by staff, and that the applicant pay $950 for the installation of one streetlight on Buffalo Road. Building staff noted that the shed will need to be removed from the newly created lot, and if it exceeds 10 square meters in building area, the applicant should submit for a building demolition permit. No other comments have been received from public staff agencies, except the region did note, which was provided to the applicant, that any future development on this lot may require road widening. That concludes your consent summary with the 11 conditions noted. Minor variance A49. The purpose and effect of this application is to request a decrease to the front and rear yard setbacks of the retained lot to facilitate the severance application, which proposes to create the new lot on the south side of the property. Staff note that these are technical variances associated with the consent file. Once the lot is severed, Buffalo Road street line will be shorter of the two street lines and will be considered the front line according to definitions in the zoning bylaw. The exterior lot line will be on the Garrison Road frontage. This results in the front and exterior yards shifting accordingly. This minor variance has been submitted concurrently. Approval of these variances is a condition of consent. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following 4 tests. Is it minor in nature? The proposal to reduce the front yard setback to the dwelling on the retained lot from 7.5 to 6.3 meters is minor in nature. As noted, this is a technical variance arising from the proposed variance, or severance, sorry. The front yard setback of 6.3 meters from the dwelling to Buffalo Road is an existing situation and does not change the availability of amenity space or parking on the property. The variance is not anticipated to have an impact on surrounding properties. The proposal to reduce the rear yard setback to the dwelling on the retained lot from 10 to 9.3 meters is minor. This too is a technical variance, and with the property line along Buffalo Road now being the front lot line as a result of the severance, the rear lot line and rear yard have also shifted. This setback is also an existing situation. Given the property is zoned R1 zone and designated urban residential, the continued use of the property for residential purposes and the creation of a new infill lot is considered desirable and appropriate for the development of the subject property. The intent of the minimum front yard setback regulations is to maintain consistency along the streetscape and to ensure that sufficient space is provided for parking. This proposal meets this intent. The existing setback will not negatively impact the streetscape as it is already an existing condition. Additionally, although the front yard setback is deficient by 1.2 meters, the minimum depth required by the zoning bylaw for parking space 6.0 meters is still being met. As such, the provision for parking on the property remains unimpacted by the variance. The general intent of the minimum rear yard setback regulations are to ensure that there is an adequate amount of amenity area for residents of a dwelling. This proposal meets this intent. The rear yard setback deficiency is minor, thus sufficient amenity space will still exist, and which was defined in the interior side yard setback prior to the severance. Amenity space is also present elsewhere on the property, specifically at the new exterior side yard, which is abutting Garrison Road, which exceeds the exterior side yard setback requirements of 8.08 meters. Staff are satisfied that a sufficient amount of amenity area will remain on the property. The property owner may wish to install a board fence to buffer the rear yard amenity from Garrison Road. The official plan states that the lands designated under urban residential are intended for a variety of housing forms, including single detached dwellings. The plan also states that residential intensification, infill development, and redevelopment is encouraged in urban areas that have sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. Alongside the concurrent application for consent, approval of this variance will facilitate the creation for a new infill lot, which will subsequently result in the construction of a dwelling. As such, the proposed variances meet the intent of the official plan. Based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variances. There are no further objections from staff, agency, or public with regarding the minor variance, and that concludes the reports.
Thanks, Kara. Randeep, did you have any comments on any correspondence that Kara just read?
Yeah, none on that regard. My only question is the original address of the property remains unchanged, even though the frontage will now change. So that's more of a question. Will the address still be Garrison Road?
Kara, did you want to answer that?
It will still be Garrison Road. It's just for zoning purposes, the front yard will now be considered on Buffalo, but we will still retain the 1473 Garrison Road. And then the new lot will have a Buffalo Road address,
Yes, that's
which it won't be
that's
assigned until building permits are.
Yeah, that's cool. You also mentioned that it is advised to get fence on the Garrison Road side. One of the comments was, so again, I'm trying to build fence right now, so I'm putting the project on hold because I don't know, things are shifting, but I would like to understand the heights that I can build in the future. I do understand because of this, the lot frontage now being Buffalo Road, the maximum I can go is 1 meter. But again, that is a separate issue. Other than that, I have no comment regarding the actual, the severance for which this meeting is held.
Right. And you can refer to the fence bylaw that I sent to you with regards to what's permitted, and staff can answer any questions you have at a later date on that.
But no comment regarding the severance itself.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Do any committee members have any questions for the applicant, Sam or Dave?
I do not.
I do not.
And I do not. Now, Randeep, I just want to ask you, do you have any questions about the variance, or you're good with the variance too? You just said consent, the severance. Are you okay with the variance too?
I'm okay with the variance.
Okay, and do any committee members have any questions about the variance? I don't have any. Dave, do you?
No.
I do
Sam?
not. I just one quick question was the 11 conditions that were noted, he's in agreement with.
Yep.
Okay.
Mackenzie, would you like to ask the public, either virtually or by phone, if they would like to speak on behalf of this application?
So at this time, if any of the applicants in the waiting room would like to raise their virtual hand, please feel free to do so. Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask that this file be closed. Us committee members express their views on the consent and the variance, and then we'll put the motion for the consent, and then we'll put the motion on the variance.
With the application in front of us and the variance in front of us, I'll be supporting both consent and minor variance applications this evening, as the applicant has demonstrated that he has no objection and there's nobody appealing it at this point.
Thank you, Sam. Dave?
I'll also be in favor of it, agreeing with Sam's comments. It meets the 4 tests, and it meets with the town planning department's infill lot procedure, so I have no issue with it.
And I'll be supporting application based on what my colleagues have said. I'm not going to overstate anymore. So I'll be in favor of the application. So could someone put the motion on the floor for the minor variance, and then we'll do the consent right after.
I'll make a motion that minor variance A4921 be approved as outlined. And I also make a motion that application for consent B2421 be approved as written.
All right, so we'll go for a second on the consent application first. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried for the consent application, and now for the minor variance.
Seconded. Well, I can't make the motion and second it. David already did that.
Yeah, so we did the consent. Now we can do the variance. Go ahead. Yeah, you can do it on the floor, Sam, for the variance now.
I thought I did already, but I'll do it again.
Yeah. Well, legally we have to. If we get the consent first, then we have to do another one for the minor variance.
All right, I make a motion that minor variance A4921 be approved as written.
With
I'll
the
second that,
conditions.
Sam.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried, Randeep. You
Okay.
receive or notice the committee's decision. The decision becomes final so long no appeals received within the 20 days of this notice. Thank you for tonight. Take care.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
luck.
Thank you, everybody. In fact, thank you.
Good luck.
All right.
Okay, next application, Mackenzie, let me know when you're ready.
He's always ready.
Is minor variance A5021. The address is 26 Englewood Court. The applicant is Robert Mueller. The owners Robert and Bianca Mueller. Hi, Robert. How are you? You have to press your mute button. Sorry. Yep, there you go. How are
Can you
you?
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Are you ready to proceed with tonight's application?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence, then you can make your comments based on the correspondence that Kara has made. And if any committee members have any questions, we'll ask you then, okay?
Okay,
Thanks. Okay, Kara.
Purpose and effect of this application is to permit a decreased interior side yard setback for a proposed second-story addition on an attached garage. The addition is intended for residential use. The proposal to reduce the interior side yard setback along the southern lot line to 1.5 meters is minor. Staff note that this is a technical variance resulting from the increase in building height due to the proposed second-story addition above the attached garage. The existing building footprint and setback to the southern lot line will not change. Staff are of the opinion that the setback is minor as it is an existing situation and the setback appears to be sufficient for access, maintenance, and drainage along the southern facing of the existing dwelling. The proposal to permit reduced interior side yard setback to facilitate a second-story addition to an existing residential dwelling is appropriate and desirable. The R1 zoning permits dwelling height of up to 2.5 stories and 9 meters in height, and the addition will not decrease the existing setback or expand the footprint of the dwelling. The general intent of the interior side yard setback regulations in the zoning bylaw are to ensure that there is sufficient space for maintenance, access, and drainage along the flank of the dwelling and to prevent massing impacts on adjacent properties. This intent is maintained and the proposed addition will not alter the existing setback or footprint of the existing dwelling and therefore will not negatively impact maintenance, access, or drainage along the south lot line. Planning staff do not anticipate undue massing impacts to parcels of the south as the existing dwelling is a raised bungalow and the proposed addition is more akin to a half-story increase in height. The proposal to permit a reduced setback to facilitate a second-story addition to an existing single detached dwelling is consistent with the general intent of the urban residential land use designation in the official plan. Planning staff note that there is a detached shed on the north side of the dwelling that has a 0 setback, and the owners have committed to removing the shed to resolve that zoning deficiency. Based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variance on the condition that the attached shed on the north side of the dwelling is removed or relocated to meet zoning regulations. No other comments have been received from staff agencies or the public, and that concludes your report with the one condition with regarding the shed.
Thanks, Kara. Robert, did you have any comments based on what Kara just read from the agencies or from the town?
No, I have no additional comments.
Okay. Do committee members have any questions, Sam or Dave?
I do not.
I
I do not. No, I do not either. Mackenzie, can you check the virtual room, or if anybody on by phone wants to make comments on the application, please?
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, I'll ask that this file be closed, ask committee members to express their views, and then put the motion on the floor.
I'll be in favor of this this evening. It meets the 4 tests, and I don't have any issue with it, Sam.
And Sam?
Agreed.
And I'll be in favor of this application. Dave, you want to put the motion on the floor?
Put a motion forward that minor variance file A50-21 be accepted with all written and oral submissions with the conditions set forth in the town policies.
And Sam, your seconder?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried. Robert, you'll receive written notice of committee decision. The decision becomes final so long no appeals are received within the 20 days of the notice. Thanks for attending. You have take care and have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Okay, the third application tonight is minor variance A5121. The address is 12762 Aerosmith Court. Applicants Parkside Custom Homes, Lou Biaggi. The owner is Royal Niagara Falls Estate Development Corp., B. Ivanchuk. And I'll just wait for Mr. Biaggi or Lou to come in, and he can, we can ask if he's ready to go with his application. Hi, Lou. How are you?
Good. How are you, Stan?
Good. Are you ready to proceed for tonight's application?
Yes, I am.
I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence. If you have any comments or questions, you can ask us. Then if we have any questions or comments for you, we'll ask you, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
The purpose and effect of this application is to permit an increase to the maximum permitted lot coverage for proposed 1-story single detached dwelling with a rear covered porch. The proposal to increase the maximum lot coverage of the dwelling to 36% is minor. The proposed dwelling is part of a new plan of subdivision that is currently undergoing development, and an increase in lot coverage will not negatively impact any existing residential uses on adjacent lands. The proposed dwelling size is fitting for the lot as there is a sufficient amenity area in the rear yard. No massing impacts are anticipated as the proposed dwelling exceeds all required setbacks of the R2 zoning. The proposal to construct a single detached dwelling on the subject property is appropriate and desirable for the area. The proposed increase in lot coverage meets all of the requirements of zoning, and the subject property is part of a new plan of subdivision. Further, covered decks and porches are becoming increasingly popular in new builds. This proposal is consistent with the design and nature of other parcels in the River Trail Estates 2 subdivision. The general intent of maximum lot coverage regulations of the zoning bylaw are to ensure that new dwellings are adequately sized and that they do not overpower the lot or result in massing impacts on adjacent parcels. This proposal meets this intent. The increase in lot coverage to 36% will result in an adequately sized dwelling with sufficient space for servicing, amenity space, and parking. The requested increase in lot coverage will not overpower the lot or result in massing impacts as the proposed dwelling meets all setback requirements of the zoning. The low-density residential land use designation is normally intended for single detached, semi-detached, and duplex dwellings. The subject property is part of River Trail Estates 2 subdivision, which was registered in January of 2018. The proposed single detached dwelling meets the intent of the secondary plan. Infrastructure had no further comments. The building department noted that the building permit for construction of the new dwelling has been issued with a partially covered rear porch, which complies with the lot coverage provisions. If the applicant would like the entire rear porch to be covered as illustrated on the site plan drawing forming part of the minor variance application, the owner will be required to submit revised drawings to the building department if the variance is approved. No further comments were received from staff, agencies, or the public, and that concludes the 0 conditions on the minor variance.
Thanks, Kara, for the comments. Lou, do you have any comments based on what Kara just read from the town?
No, I have no further comments.
Okay, thank you. Sam, do you have any questions?
None at all.
Dave?
Not at all.
And I have none. Mackenzie, you like to see the virtual room to see if anybody wants to comment on the application or by phone?
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, I'll ask that this file to be closed, and I'll ask committee members to express their views, then put the motion on the floor. Sam?
Just one comment, Mr. Biaggi, is that the last comment, if the applicant would like to and would like the entire rear porch to be covered as illustrated on the site plan forming part of the minor variance application, the owner will be required to submit a revised drawing. Is that something that you intend to do?
Yes, I've already got the designers on standby to create new drawings for the covered porch. We require new trusses and parallel beams, so we're ready to proceed with that.
Okay, thank you. No further question?
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Dave, you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
I'll ask this file be closed, and if anybody, Sam, you want to express your views, and then we'll put the motion on the floor after David and myself.
Yes, I will be supporting the application in front of us.
Okay, Dave?
I'll also be supporting it. The application is minor in nature and it meets the 4 tests and have no issue with it.
And I have no issues with the application. It does meet the test, and I have no problem with what the applicant's trying to do in that area, so I have no questions. If Sam, you want to put the motion on the floor?
We'll put a motion of for minor variance A5121 to be accepted as written and orally verbalized.
Thank you. And Dave?
I'll second that
Seconder?
motion.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried, Lou. You received written notice of committee decision. The decision becomes final so long no appeals are received within the 20 days of the notice. Thanks for attending and have a good night.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, the last application tonight is minor variance file A5221. The address is 3824 Pearl Street. The applicant is Kevin and Pat Steele. The owner is Kevin Steele.
I don't know.
All right, your show video is in the bottom left-hand corner. There should be a little
Okay.
arrow that points up.
Hang on 1 second.
There you go.
A little, okay.
There we go. We had trouble with that last time too, didn't we?
I know. I was so nervous. I thought, what did I do wrong? I still don't know, but.
And
I
is
know.
Kevin the other person that's in the waiting room? Does he want to come in as well, or?
He's sitting right here. He can hear
Okay.
you.
All right, perfect.
Okay, so
Give you that
Pat,
option.
are you going to be the applicant, or both you and Kevin are going to be the applicant?
I don't know. Does it matter?
I just want to, I'm going to ask, no, it doesn't matter. I'm going to ask you, are you ready, prepared to go with the application? That's the important question.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Okay, I'll ask Kara to read the
They both shouted
correspondence.
yes.
I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence, and then you can make your comments, and then if the committee members have any questions, we'll ask you then, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Kara, you can read the correspondence.
The purpose and effect of this application is to permit a decreased interior side yard setback for the proposed one-story dwelling on an infill lot. The reduced setback is only required on the west side of the property. The proposal is to reduce the interior side yard setback along the western lot line to 1.5 meters is minor. Staff note that this variance is largely a result of the subject property having accommodate a large easement on the east side of the property in order to preserve servicing laterals to 595 Bellevue Boulevard to the north. This resulted in the proposed dwelling having to be shifted over to the west side of the subject property. Planning staff are in support of the reduction to the interior side yard setback in this instance, as the proposed dwelling is 1 story and flat roofed. The dwelling will be similar in height to the 1-story dwelling to the west and will not generate massing impacts to the parcel to the west. The proposal to permit a reduced interior side yard setback on the west side of the subject property to facilitate construction of a 1-story dwelling on an infill is appropriate and desirable in this instance. The reduced setback on the west side is largely a result of the requirement for an easement on the east side of the property that was approved by the town. The general intent of the interior side yard setback regulations of the zoning bylaw are to prevent massing impacts on existing residential dwellings adjacent to the infill lots. This intent is maintained as the proposed dwelling is 1 story in height and relatively low rise with a flat top roof structure. This design is similar in height to the 1-story dwelling to the west and will not result in undue massing impact to the property or overpower the lot. The proposal to permit the reduced setback to facilitate construction of the single detached dwelling is consistent with the general intent of the low-density residential land use designation. The secondary plan notes that infill development can be expected to be more compact than the existing lot fabrics in the neighborhood. Based on these comments, planning staff support the request for variance. No other comments or objections were received from staff, agencies, or the public, and that concludes your report with 0 conditions.
Thank you, Kara. Pat, did you have any comments or questions with the report and the correspondence that Kara just read from the town?
No.
You have none? Okay. Do the committee members have any questions? Dave
I do not.
and Sam?
None from my side.
The only question I have is the plan that you submitted here of the house, that's what the house is going to look like? It looks like a 1-story house, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Mackenzie, do you have anybody in the virtual audience that'd like to speak on this application or by phone?
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, I'll ask that this file be closed. Dave, you can put your comments about this application. We'll put the motion on the floor right after I put my comments. Thank you.
I'll be in favor of this minor variance that it meets the 4 tests, and I have no issue with it.
I'll be supporting this application as well.
And I'll be supporting this application based, it meets the 4 tests and it's filling an infill lot, so I'll be supporting the application. Dave, if you want to put the motion on the floor.
I'll put a motion for the minor variance file A52-21, considering all written and oral submissions be accepted without any conditions.
Sam?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, Pat, the motion is, your application has been carried and the motion has been carried. You receive a notice of committee decision. Decision becomes final so long no appeals received within the 20 days of the notice. Thanks for attending and good luck with your project.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Next order of business is first of all, is there any other business first of all?
None that I'm aware of.
And then can I ask for a motion for the committee to process the signing of these decisions tonight by the majority of members electronically?
I'll put a motion forward.
Okay, Sam, and all in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. Karen, is there any business that we need to know or everything's okay?
I think everything's okay. We have 2, just kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but 2 hearings coming up in September. Both look like they're going to be busy hearings, but of course the committee can handle that. So that's it for other business.
And is there going to be 2 hearings or 1?
2 in September, 1 in October.
Okay. So
And I
next hearing.
The new Secretary Treasurer will start probably end of September, will be in attendance at the hearing
Okay.
and might start hosting October. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, thank you. So the next hearing dates will be September 9th and 23rd. If no further business meeting, this meeting is adjourned at 6:37.